I was diagnosed with Graves' disease. I had to take control of my life because the trial and tribulations of that experience from like the doctors and being on all these medications, I just couldn't do it anymore. Some of my family members are Buddhists, and then some are just spiritual. We're all raised in the church. My first experience, quote unquote, was unpleasant. I used to have sleep paralysis a lot. I would see a lot of things and I didn't understand it. We found out the lady who lived there before us did seances in that room, in my room.
Amani channel, this is Seeds of Awakening. Today's guest, Dominique Jackson, says she was basically living her life out of her body without any real purpose or direction. That is, until she was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that made her take a look at her health, her nutrition, and most importantly, her spirituality. And while she was hesitant to share what she learned with others at first, now she has a business that helps others heal. So, Dominique, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
I was just looking at your site, and there's it seems like everything you do is with passion, with love. Let's start off by talking a little bit about your business and what you focus on.
So my business is a spiritual based business and it's truly focused on healing and teaching others how to heal themselves and just having the tools, like making the tools available for them to implement in their like daily spiritual practice or day to day life.
And how long have you been doing that?
Mm, Probably about 7 years, but I just opened this online business like a year ago, and I used to do everything kind of like off site. It was just like word of mouth. I meet you somewhere, and I was like, you know what? Let me just get serious and be legit.
So, how did you get there? Like, what's your backstory? What were you doing before you got into the spiritual side of life?
Before I was just out of my body, and about 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, and that was like a whole thing, and that whole experience, I just had to take control of my life because the trial and tribulations of that experience from like the doctors and being on all these medications, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I started to do research on nutrition and like alternative healing, and I fell in love with healing my body through foods. And then my aunt, who is an intuitive coach, she taught me how to, well, she introduced me to meditation and then introduced me to energy work and how to heal the energetic body. And that's when like the love just amplified. It became like my life. And my family is already very spiritual. So it wasn't anything like new, but just tapping into that and strengthening that muscle that I have, like my gifts and things like that.
How were you raised?
We were raised Christian, well, pes, Presbyterian,
Hmm.
and then I have some of my family members are Buddhists, and then some are just spiritual. So we have like a gumbo pot, and it's just we were all raised in the church. My special grandmommy, we all had to be at church, but we were all very just, yeah, like a gumbo pot. So nothing was ever like taboo or anything like that.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, what did you learn about like the food and the nutrition that was different from the medicine, the traditional medicine that was treating your Graves' disease?
So I had hypertension thyroid, and I started researching on foods that help the thyroid or just help my immune system and inflammation. Basically that's all inflammation, and a lot of people suffer from inflammation. So learning, what herbs or roots help, inflammation, and I got into juicing and smoothies, and I don't eat meat anymore. So that was my journey with that.
Was that lifestyle change very drastic for you? How was it making the transition?
No, actually, no, it wasn't. I never really cared for meat as a child. My mom always said, she was like, "You're going to be a vegetarian." I'm like, okay. And I'm pescatarian now, but I'm transitioning out of that soon. But it wasn't hard at all. Like I literally went cold turkey, and it was fine. I'm going on 3 years.
That's great. So as you started learning about meditation, talk to me about the loving experience that you're saying that you felt when you sort of tapped into that energy.
Yeah, well, when I first started meditation, I was very beginner. I would just, after work, I would just light one little white candle and, do some guided meditations. But I used to have a lot of monkey mind, as you know, being a beginner, that happens. And so I started to focus on my breath instead. So I kind of actually learned breath work before fully doing like guided meditations to help me focus. And that's what I did probably for about 6 months. And I had to really make it a habit. And it was hard. And I used to be hard on myself when I missed a day or something like that. But in the process, I had to learn how to be gentle with myself and kind to myself. So now I'm like every day, 7 years strong. And it's more it's longer now. It's I have my whole routine for that.
So you said something about the monkey mind, because I know some folks like meditation. I can't just clear my mind of my thoughts, and you get those distracting thoughts to come in. You really can't really silence those thoughts all the way. Talk about that process of being gentle on yourself and just going with the flow.
Yeah, so a lot of people take that to heart when they get monkey mind, but that's always going to happen. It doesn't matter if you meditated you've been meditating for 20 years or 5 months, 1 month, we will have that. So it is very important to be kind to yourself and bring yourself back. All you have to do is bring yourself back to breath. When you hear a thought come up, you just, okay, thank you for popping up, whether it was negative or positive, and you just bring it back to your breath, like bring it back to that moment. Maybe think about your feet, think about your inhale, exhale, and it will bring you back. And if you have to do it every second of your meditation, then that's what you have to do. But that's still a practice. That's still a practice of mindfulness, but just in a different way.
So, being that you came from a spiritual background, do you feel like you had a awakening per se, or was it just like a progression of information that you finally learned? And now that you look back, you're like, oh, I awakened. How does that? How do you kind of digest that?
That's a good question. You know what? Wow. Um, the second statement you said, because I've experienced things as a child when I was 8 years old. Um, and I think as a child, the experiences that I had, they weren't really good. So I think I just closed that down and then we'll just simmered it. And then when I started tapping back into my spirituality, I think it was just more of an awakening, and I felt more supported and comfortable just going through my journey because it was something I've been raised around. So it wasn't like I had to hide my rituals or my altar or anything, everything I felt comfortable. So I was able to expand that and really stretch that muscle, through my journey.
Was it the kind of situation where you were excited, like you got to tell folks about it, or were you just kind of keeping it to yourself as you kind of had this realization that you were kind of having a spiritual experience?
I actually kept it to myself. It was, I was nervous to share it with people. So I'm like, they probably think I'm crazy, or they don't know they don't know what this. I can't just talk about this. And it was funny because I was more so scared to share to the public than how some are scared to share with their family and they feel more comfortable with the public. So it's vice versa to me, and I was really scared. It took me a minute to really open up on in that way, and I think that's why I took a while in my business too. Because it's just like I don't know, but the growth.
So what about it was kind of scary to you? What did you feel as you were sort of going through this process? What did you feel that was kind of like hesitant to reveal to others what you were going through?
Judgment, um, basically judgment, and she's crazy, or am I really experiencing what I'm experiencing? I guess almost questioning, making it question myself. I was projecting all the way,
Hmm.
and that really held me back. But my cousin and my aunt really helped me. My cousin does Reiki, and she's spiritual as well, and my aunt, who's the intuitive coach, just doing things with them and building my confidence made me kind of like, okay, get the courage, just what, take me as I am.
So let me ask you this. What about your experience made you think that you were going crazy or that people would think you were crazy?
So like, okay, my experience as a child, the house we actually moved into, it was like upstairs, downstairs, and the upstairs was only like one room, so that was my room. And I used to have sleep paralysis a lot, and I would see a lot of things. I would see a lot of things. I mean, I would see like dark energy, light energy, random things, and I didn't understand it. And when I would tell my mom, she was like, okay, so we have to clean the house. But we found out the lady who lived there before us did seances in that room, in my room, and never closed the portal. So when we would clean the house, sage it and, pray, I mean, it would help for a second, but it just, the portal was open. So I would see things on my door. I would see, so I just was like, oh my God. And when I talk about that experience, because that experience, um, stayed with me very long.
Left
So
left an impression.
it did. And so that kind of made me scared to deepen my spirituality too, like tap into my power, because my first experience, quote unquote, was unpleasant, you know. So, but that, I'm sorry, I feel like I went around and you got to remind me of the question again.
Oh, I don't remember what I asked you. So what I think I asked you was, what about your experiences as a youth made you think? What made you think you were
Oh, it was
going?
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So things like that. And when I feel energy and knowing really how someone feels, reading between the lines, but really feeling what they're feeling, and feeling a guide or hearing an ancestor, I was like, oh man, like, is that my voice? No, that's not my voice. So am I crazy? Because I don't sound like that, you know? So things
Hmm.
like that.
Maybe you think you're going schizophrenic or you're hearing voices in your head or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm like, no, it's not.
So how did you transition from your spiritual awakening to your business and helping others?
Um, when I would tell my story, a lot of people would reach out to me, ask me, how did I do it, or they thought I did it without doctors. I'm like, I feel like the holistic and Western medicine kind of goes hand in hand. I did still take some of my medication, but the goal was to be off of that. The goal is to, I'm not leaning on this. And a lot of people who had autoimmune disorders reached out, and then I would tell them my story, and then they were interested. So they were interested in, my energy work and meditation and, better eating. And that's kind of where it all started, to be honest.
So how do you help people now? What's your main service that you offer to people? And I guess there's some validation also that you're not crazy because others are actually reaching out to you because they're looking to you for help now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't look at it like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So now, um, I do a couple of things. So I make anointing oils that they all have different intentions that you can use in your spiritual practice on your body, and when you're doing candle work, or um, if you just want to put on your body to protect yourself. And then I do, I'm a sound healer as well, so sound bowls. So I do sound bath meditations monthly, and we have a group session, and I heal through that way too. Oh, in my tarot readings.
Now, I know if any Christians or traditional folks in religion are going to see this interview, they're going to think she is totally into the witchcraft and she's in the spirits and their dark spirits that she's working with. What would you say to those folks?
You know that they need to open their minds, because it is not demonic. It's not witchcraft. It's it's co-creating with God. Like, my background is through church, and I mean, we were Christians, and my faith is very strong. My faith has been strong because I was raised in the church, and I've had good experiences in the church. But I realized, working with my ancestors, my special grandma, my family members that have crossed and helped guided me, I just know this is nothing but love. How could something witchcraft or demonic be so much love? And I felt the presence of God in my work and what I'm doing. So I just feel like those people, I just send them love and light, because they are not able to understand or go the extent of beyond religion, like breaking that barrier to fully experience God in these different ways. He's everywhere. So I just feel like you can't put a cap on that.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like we're reaching a point in society where folks are becoming more open and they're looking for other answers than they've been just indoctrinated in, or the traditional go to church, listen to the pastor, pay your tithes, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and I feel like people think it's one or the other. It's like I have no problem still going to church, paying my tithes, and doing my rituals and setting up my altar. It's all the same thing. It's all fellowship. So I like that some people, people are breaking out of that, and I think social media is like playing into that because you can see more. People are doing different things and having different spiritual practices. And if you think about it, like with Buddhism and other religions, they chant, they have altars. They call them different names, but they have altars. So when some people say having an ancestral altar is like demonic or witchcraft, it's kind of crazy because it's like, well, um, you know, Catholics and Buddhists, they have altars. So it's like, so
And
how come you're not?
they have their saints that they pray to, they have their different, it's
Yes.
verbiage is different, but they're doing the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, are you guys not looking at that? So that
Yeah.
kind of blows my mind all the time.
Now, do people in your congregation, do they know about your other spiritual side and your other business and your practices?
No, we actually stopped going to my home church. So I'll do like online or something like that, like Agape, and
Okay.
they're spiritual, things like
Right.
that. But I don't think I would be scared. I don't think I would be because if someone came to me, or I think about it is if I don't say anything, then maybe, I will miss the mark of helping somebody. Like maybe I was supposed to meet somebody that day and tell them about my experience or what I bring, my service to help them. And since I'm closing my mouth, they never get that, gift. So I always have to think about that to push myself to, if I feel spirit tell me to like speak on it, then I have to speak on it.
Tell me about so for the beginner who's just thinking about getting into meditation, what are some things that what are some meditations or what are some ways a person can sort of start that process?
I would tell them first to work on their breath, their breathing. I feel like that's most important. That doesn't get highlighted enough in meditation, working on your breath. So I would, tell them to start with breath work. They can go on YouTube. There's a lot of free guided meditations on how to, do breath work and meditation. And the Calm app is really bomb. I actually started with that. They did like a breathing, a 7-day trial where you do work on your breathing, and I feel like that helped. And to be patient with yourself because some people think you got to just sit down and be quiet. I mean, if you want to do that, you
You can
can,
try, you
but
can
your mind,
try.
yeah, you could try, but you might as well just start journaling then. And people forget that. I think journaling, is like meditation. Sometimes you can have active meditations, and people don't even realize that. Some people go to the gym and they're like, I'm always in the zone, and that's where I get my best ideas. They don't realize they're in a meditative state.
Mhm.
So little things like that. Your meditation can be what you want it to be. You can create that and just start off slow and just work your way up, and you're fine. If you just do 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, 2 minutes a day, you're fine. You're doing good. You did it.
Mm. Great words. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank
Any other
you.
advice or any other information about your story that you'd like to share with the audience right now?
I would say if you're called to share your story or meditation or religion, anything to deepen that, I feel like step forward in that, have the courage. A lot of us hold things back because of fear or hesitation, and we just got to walk through it and work through fear instead of letting fear control us. And if you want to look for me in services and learn about that, you can hit me up and I could be there for you. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So I like to ask, there's some questions that I like to ask all my guests. The first one is,
Okay.
what's your definition of an awakening?
um My definition of awakening is calling back your power, tapping back into your power. I feel like that's because once you get that, it's on in. Because it's like, what you gonna do with it? Like where how you gonna use it? How you gonna strengthen it?
What would be your advice to someone who's going through an awakening?
Always be patient. Don't think you're crazy. It will be hard, and you will have hard moments because of what's coming up, but To heal is to feel, and you got to go through it to, get through it, and you will be okay. You will be okay.
What's the best lesson that you've learned in life? What's the most valuable lesson that you've learned in life?
To not sleep on life. I feel like when I was sick, that was God telling me wake up because I wasn't in my body. I wasn't feeling nothing. I wasn't in my body, so sickness was able to get in there. And I remember standing on the window saying, "I will never take my life for granted again. I will move intentionally," and that was the biggest pivotal moment for me in my life.
I did want to ask you, now that you mentioned that, just brought that back. What did you mean by you were out of your body or you weren't in your body? What do you mean by that?
Sometimes, just how could I word this in a way? I was doing things I wasn't supposed to do. I mean, I was just drinking carelessly, hanging with people I shouldn't hang out with. I was environments, just being aloof and not really. And it's crazy because I'll
Weren't being
have,
as conscious, weren't being as conscious of your actions and your thoughts.
yes, yes. And I would have these inklings, I think, of spirit trying to tell me stuff, but I just would, whatever, you know, just just not conscious, not mindful of my surroundings, what I'm eating, and things like that. And I feel like that was the cause.
I gotta ask you, how's your health now?
Great. I reversed my Graves' disease. And, I'm feeling good spiritually, strong and healthy, my body physically. So I'm, truly grateful for that. I didn't think I could do it during the time, but it's here and I'm good.
That's excellent. I'm so glad you are. So, as we close out, if there's any websites or any services that you'd like to share with the audience, please do so. If you have a social media, how can people reach you?
Yeah, so you can reach me on Instagram. It's Domi DOMI 3 E's underscore. And that has all my links to my website Anointed, where you can get a intuitive reading, a session, or some oils. So yeah.
Well, you know what? I didn't even ask about your tarot card reading because I wanted you to give us an example. Well, maybe we'll have to do that in
Yeah.
a later time. We'll do that on the next time we talk.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your story with us. Thanks so much for spending some time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.